there's something here that's going to give us a hint and a secret to the secret of our process. The writer says, "O my dove," in verse 14, "in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the steep pathway, let me see your form." That's the New American Standard. One translation says, "O my dove, in the cleft of the rock, in the secret staircase." In the Hebrew, it literally says, the secret place of the spiral staircase. See, where we get hung up is we think God works like we work. We think He works on a time schedule that we work on, and we think that God works in a linear motion that we flow in, because if I missed 5 minutes ago, where I am today, where I am right now, is something that I lost that I'll never get back. But what we have to understand is that God sits on the circle of the earth. And God deals with us in the circular process, not the linear process. God deals with us in the process of going around and coming back around. And if I'm in the process God wants me in, when I go around and I come back around, when God brings me around again, I'm actually higher than I was when I came around the first time. Because God is taking me up in the process. Do you see this? And where we get frustrated is trying to discover where I am in the process of it all. So we have this linear process, which is called the chronos time in the Greek, or chronological order. Then we have the kairos moment, or the kairos, which is the circular order. And we have to remember that there is a promise, then there is the preparation, and then there is the destination. Where am I? I remember back when I was a teenager, before I got saved, I didn't know who I was. I was an illegitimate child. My father had abandoned my mother. I was staying with some foster parents, being thrown back and forth from foster parents to my real mother, who had married 5 or 6 different men who were all abusive, alcoholic, struggling individuals in their own identity, not knowing what to do with me, not knowing what to do with my mother. And being thrown back and forth. And the question that I began to ask myself is, why am I in the earth? If I didn't come here with a mama and a daddy who were together, do I have a right to be here? And I felt like a second-class citizen. So I struggled for my male identity for a long time, trying to discover who I was. And sometime during the process of becoming a teenager, I read the book The Cross and the Switchblade when I was 13 and had an encounter with God, and then walked away from the Lord. Actually never really got discipled. So at 16, I had another encounter with God at a youth conference with David Wilkerson as the speaker, who wrote the book The Cross and the Switchblade. God used him in my life, and from that point on, I got filled with the Spirit, and it seemed like every battle I went into in the Spirit, from that point on, I seemed to win. It seemed like everything I touched turned to gold. Everything I did worked. And then I rolled around in my 20s and I began to struggle. Because in my 20s, I had to deal with the mistakes from my arrogance and my father issues. Because my father died when I was 14. My foster dad passed away when I was 14. And I didn't know who I was, didn't know who I was supposed to connect to. Didn't know what I was supposed to be. And I was like a young bull elephant, about 2 years of age, being driven out of the mother herd out into the wilderness with the other old bulls, trying to find my way. And what I needed was a couple of old bulls just to beat the daylights out of me. That's because I thought I was more than I was. But I had my father issues that I was struggling with. And it seemed like God took me through a series of years where I was wounded by Him. And then somewhere in my 30s, I realized that I had to begin to process the pain of all of that. And processing the pain, I then had to learn to read destiny cycles. There comes a time, men, in our life when we're not so motivated to do what's making us happy as much as it is to find out how we can master some destiny cycles to find out why we're here. You know what I mean? And then I hit 40 years of age. And at 40, now I find myself beginning to master destiny cycles. I'm just now beginning to really realize who I am and what I'm supposed to be, because when I got saved at 16, I thought I was going to be Jimmy Swaggart. Because he was hot in those days. You remember? And then something happened and I changed and went a different direction in my call, and then I was going to be Larry Lee. Could you not tarry 1 hour? And then something changed and something happened in my early 30s to where I looked in the mirror and I found me. I stopped trying to preach like Jimmy Swaggart or Larry Lee or somebody else, and I began just to be who I was. And ironically, when I got there and started being me, favor opened up to me that had never been there before. Yeah. I found my slice in the pie. I found my place. Some of us, maybe even where you're working and what you're doing, you're still trying to find your slice. Maybe you've already found it, but now you're looking to go to the next level. And we're never going to really be Proverbs 31 men until we can come to the place of finding out who I am first, because the foundation of anything I become has to be laid with already knowing who I am. You may be sitting here tonight saying, I know who I am. That's wonderful. That's good. But what do you have, and what are you going to leave? That's the other question. Where am I going to make a mark? And what mark am I going to leave when it's time to leave? It's very, very important. Stay with me. There's a thing called failed inheritance. 1 Samuel chapter 9. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to. There's a story of a man by the name of Saul, a young lad, probably about 17 years old. And his father is a man by the name of Kish that everybody knows in Israel, because Kish is a valiant warrior. He's a mighty man of valor. And Saul takes the opportunity to help his father when his father tells him, Saul,